Across Europe, the thunder of cannons filled the skies, cities were wiped off the map, and millions of soldiers fought for their lives. In the midst of this hell, there was a unit whose existence was known to almost no one, silently carrying out its mission. In their hands, there were no rifles, but brushes, paints, inflatable tanks, loudspeakers, and fake radio transmitters. They were a small band of men who defeated the enemy not with weapons, but with imagination. They were called the Ghost Army. By 1944, the Allies had gained a significant advantage in Europe, but this superiority was fragile. The German army was still experienced, disciplined, and powerful. Every wrong move could cost the lives of thousands of soldiers. Allied commanders were searching for ways to mislead the enemy without risking a real army on the front lines. It was then that an extraordinary idea was born. What if we showed the enemy an army that didn't actually exist? To bring this idea to life, the U.S. Army formed a secret unit called the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops. But those chosen for this unit were no ordinary soldiers. Painters, set designers, sound engineers, fashion illustrators, advertising poster artists, radio operators. Men who, before the war, built stage sets for Broadway, prepared film scenes in Hollywood studios, or illustrated for magazines, were now taking on one of the most dangerous behind-the-scenes roles of the war. The Ghost Army's most famous weapon was its realistic-looking inflatable tanks. These massive rubber structures could be set up in no time by just a few soldiers and, once inflated, transformed into enormous Sherman tanks from a distance or in aerial reconnaissance photos. Telling them apart from the real thing was nearly impossible, but a fake tank alone wasn't enough to complete the illusion. They needed to fool the ears as well as the eyes. Sound engineers recorded the rumble of real tank engines, the roar of heavy trucks, the synchronized march of soldiers, and even radio chatter. These recordings were blasted through massive loudspeakers mounted on trucks. These recordings were blasted through massive loudspeakers mounted on trucks in the dead of night. The distant growl of engines and the clanking of steel tracks carried for miles, serving as the perfect tool to mislead German reconnaissance units. Radio communication was the lifeblood of war. The Ghost Army's radio operators misled German intelligence with fake transmissions, crafting entirely fabricated conversations that mimicked the encryption methods used by real army units. By doing so, they created the illusion that a massive mechanized division was stationed in the area. What a German intelligence officer heard over the airwaves was, in reality, the breath of an army that didn't exist. In the summer of 1944, in northern France, Allied forces advanced inland following the Normandy landings. The German High Command struggled to predict where the main offensive would occur. The Ghost Army set up fake tanks, artillery batteries, and campgrounds miles away from the real attack point. The roar of tanks echoed from loudspeakers, and false radio transmissions filled the air. Convinced that the main assault would come from this location, the Germans redeployed their troops to the decoy zone. This crucial mistake allowed the Allies to advance on the front lines without spilling blood. In March 1945, the Ghost Army carried out one of the most successful missions in its history. During Operation Viersen, they diverted German attention away from the real crossing point of American forces over the Rhine River. Throughout the night, the sounds of a fake bridge being built were broadcast through loudspeakers. Inflatable vehicles and mock bridge sections were set up. When German reconnaissance planes spotted the scene, they unleashed heavy artillery fire on the decoy site. Meanwhile, the real bridge construction continued safely, miles away from the chaos. Among the ranks of the Ghost Army were names that would later become famous. Fashion designer Bill Blass went on to become a star in the world of haute couture. Painter Ellsworth Kelly rose to prominence as one of the key figures of modern art. Photographer Art Kane became renowned for his iconic portraits. During the war, art for them was not just a creative expression. It became a tool for survival and a means to save the lives of others. A soldier from the Ghost Army once wrote in his diary, "As night fell, we switched on the loudspeakers. The sounds of engines and clanking steel treads echoed through the forest. In the darkness, the inflatable tanks looked no different from the real ones. In the distance, the lights of German reconnaissance planes appeared. They believed there were thousands of soldiers here, but in truth, we were only a few dozen. Most people might think this unit had a safe job. In reality, the areas where the fake armies were set up were often dangerously close to the enemy. Even if the German artillery realized the targets were decoys, the shells were still real. Many members of the Ghost Army lost their lives during these operations. They fought an invisible battle waging war on the enemy's mind. The existence of the Ghost Army remained officially classified until the 1990s, when the U.S. Department of Defense declassified the documents. These unseen heroes of the war were finally recognized. Until then, few knew they had played a role just as important as the soldiers fighting on the front lines today. They are remembered in military history books as the pioneers of psychological warfare. Today, electronic warfare, fake radar signals, and digital deception operations are standard tactics for modern armies. The Ghost Army laid the foundation for all of this. Their creativity proved that war is not won by strength alone, but also by intelligence. The Ghost Army was perhaps the most extraordinary unit of World War II. Instead of weapons, they used their imagination, ingenuity, and art. Thanks to them, thousands of soldiers reached their objectives without shedding blood. And today, they remind us of a timeless truth that continues to inspire military history. Sometimes the most powerful weapon is what the enemy believes.